Welcome to Live Reality Game Podcast. My name's Bill, and I have Connor join me today, where we talk about reality TV games all the time. And today we're back again to talk about Amazing Race Season 33, Episode 5, which is leg. Which leg is it, Connor?
Well, this technically would be yeah, episode number 5.
Episode 4 and leg 5, actually, or
Yeah.
whatever it is. See, I'm already making mistakes from the start already. So, it is, so we are doing this in the leg 5 already, and we have some people actually comment our YouTube episodes, and also as well as our live podcast. And so we have Sumima Sen basically commented in our episode 3 YouTube in a video about that it is unrealistic for Phil to basically cover for 20 minutes about how the news was delivered to teams when they have to halt the production. Yes, it is unrealistic, but personally, like I said, I like to watch a more longer version of it if they can put it on whether on YouTube or on their Instagram feed for the Amazing Race or somewhere that we can see how the whole thing went down and the full reaction of the teams. It is a historical moment for the Amazing Race, of course. What do you think, Connor? Would you like to see the full version? Or would you like to see short and sweet is fine?
Personally, I think what they're giving us right now is fine.
That's
I
fine.
mean,
Yeah, I just want a
uh,
little bit more, right? I'm
you always want
basically
more. Yeah,
yes, I am yes, I have a higher standard for a lot of things.
yeah.
Yes, and also TAR Storian mentioned our podcast from Live Reality Game Community as well, which talk about my incapability of mentioning correct version name of the location. Trust me, that will still go on. That might be the main theme of our podcast for the entire season. And also, he comment on the special hat, and as well as Connor's how he actually have very interesting hat on top of it. It's just like the gadget person, right?
Yeah, I have a lot of hats. I should have brought one out this podcast, but I have to pace myself. I have a collection, but I can't. You can't show all the hats at once. You know what I
Yeah,
mean? You have to pace yourself. So
no problem. So for all the listener out there, please remember to subscribe, follow, and like our Facebook page, our YouTube channel, as well as our Twitter, so you can see Connor's stylish way of bring out the hat in an entire season. Okay, I'm very boring. You can tell I'm just very plain, and you can see Connor is very colorful right there. Okay, and I'll of course try not to stumble too much when I describe the challenge, which is also one thing that our one of our listeners mentioned. Well, so we will start the episode from season for this. We'll start the episode for the podcast today by mentioning the recap from the show itself. Basically, Phil stated that from the beginning, it says following all mandate protocols of the COVID, so the race was brought back to Switzerland. I have a big question about that, which I'll be mentioned a little bit later. And then we know that the teams are no longer departed based on the time they arrive. It's actually they have a 15-minute interval as for the remainder season. Whether or not they departed in teams groups of two, three, or one, we will basically the Phil probably will mention that on the mat, which you will see in this episode. Teams are departing in groups of two, but in the end of this episode, Phil actually said it will be groups of three, groups of two, and the team that will arrive last will departing by themselves, which I can tell you right now is already a non-elimination leg, which we expected. Were you actually not shocked about that review at all?
yeah, I mean, I expected a lot of I don't know if a lot, but non-elimination legs have to be sprinkled in there with less teams. They want to make sure they can make this race seem as if it was 11 teams from the start and no restart with less teams. So it does
Mhm.
make sense that they throw in some non-eliminations, make the race seem to the viewer's eye a little bit longer than we would think with only like 7 teams. So
Yeah.
um, it has to be expected.
Mhm.
Um, I kind of wish they would have made the first one an elimination and
Mhm.
then this one elimination,
Yeah.
but I guess that would have been a little bit too obvious per se. So
True.
I'm fine with it. It's as to be expected, but I hope we don't get an over amount on an extra amount of non eliminations. I think
Well,
a
yeah.
few is fine, but
which I look actually kind of peek into Wikipedia about the possible upcoming location in the future episodes. I kind of work out based on our prediction about how the race is going to go since the season is going to end on March 2nd. So most likely it will be about 10 episodes for the whole entire season, which is usually a little bit typical less than the regular season. But because of short amount of teams, that's how they're going to work out. So I do work out probably the how they're going to work this entire season. So we can mention that later. Then we know that the teams start with revealing their first clue, which is a roadblock, where Dustin and Ryan, as well as Kim and Penn, they started together as Group One. They mentioned that they had to go to Verzaska Dam. Hopefully, I pronounced that correctly. For the second highest commercial bungee jump in the world. Basically, it's a switchback for season 14. Connor, have you ever had a chance to watch season 14 at all?
Yes, I have seen a good bit of season 14. I've seen a good bit of pretty much every season. There are a lot
Mm,
of seasons that the cast didn't excite me, so I didn't watch the whole season, but I've seen a good bit of pretty much every season. I've definitely watched a good bit of 14 as well, and I remember that clip specifically. And I love the fact that, I don't mind revisiting places we already visited, especially when they
mhm,
throw in the idea of like, oh, we've been here before, look at the clip. It makes
mhm,
the little fans of the show really remember that clip and the nostalgia of it when the race was really at its prime. And
mhm,
maybe we're not at the prime now, some people say. So it's
mhm.
nice to remember when we were at the prime, but I love the switchbacks, as you would call it.
Yeah. And then, so what do you think about that roadblock?
I like the roadblock. I like anything that requires a little bit of fear. I
Mm,
think that's what you know they would do. They would do stuff like that. They did like a bungee jump and like zip line stuff at the very first season.
mm,
Those kinds of tasks, the ones that require fear and
mm,
bravery, are what
mm.
Amazing Race has built upon from the test of time. Like that's what we grew up on, right? So
Yeah.
I love those kinds of tasks. And I'll take a task like the bungee jump any day of the week as opposed to maybe some of the tasks we saw later in the
Mm.
episode.
I
Um,
think, yeah. So I think for season 32, which you watched the last season, there is nothing very, like you say, that instill fear, except the one where they have to walk down the side of the building, right? And then they have to basically look over the lower building and to actually pay attention to the letters, unscramble the letters to actually form an answer. That's the only task which is more like the Amazing Race like. But the rest of the tasks is just not that scary. Some of the tasks is even less exciting. But we're happy that they bring this back for another roadblock. Yes, and like you said, it's a fan will always appreciate it that they mentioned the past season, and they can if for the fan that hasn't watched the past season, they can always go back once again. Not doing any advertisement here, but for Canadian viewers or listeners out there, you can watch that on Disney Plus if you have that. Okay, and for America, of course, they can probably watch on Hulu or CBS if they subscribe it, of course. Then after that, they head to Lugano lakefront, which is called Piazza Carlo Bat- Battaglini. I think that hopefully pronounced correctly, which is to grab a clue from it, right? So of course they actually work into Travelocity Gnome again this time, which I don't think we see a lot of in season 33.
yeah, that is 100% true. They have to roam in the gnome. Roam in the gnome. They have
Roman.
to really
They
roam.
were not in Rome yet, but
Yeah,
hopefully.
yeah, yeah. You go on, go on. No, but they really have to show the gnome because the gnome is the sponsor. The gnome is why they can make these prizes and why they can have this race is because of the gnome and because of Travelocity. So they have to show the gnome. You
Yeah,
must show the gnome. If you don't show the gnome, then
mhm,
we're not getting
of
a
course.
race. And at this point, with how much showing of the gnome and product placement that they do because of Travelocity, you know what I mean? It's
Mhm,
almost like the gnome is your friend. It's almost like it's like you grew up with that gnome. You know what I mean? The gnome is almost like at this point a part of the show. It's not even like a sponsor. It's just like a part of the show. So when they get that bungee on that gnome, when they
mhm,
get the gnome strapped up too, that's
mhm.
exactly what we like. I love watching the gnome. I grew up with the gnome.
See, Travelocity marketing or sponsored person, please contact Connor for more
More gnome.
for more gnome, and he's the positive with the gnome. I personally have no positive or negative towards it, but yes, it's fun for them to push down the gnome up down that bungee jump. it's kind of fun to look at it. Yes. And then of course you see the teams actually grab a little clue from, I don't know how where they got that little clue. I didn't actually pay attention to it. It's just a very tiny clue when Dustin and Ryan open it up and I have to read that tiny one and I head to the next location. And then I have heard, of course, I always study a lot, try to prepare myself before I do this podcast, which some viewers, as well as some recappers out there, podcasters, they mentioned that this entire episode feels like it's like a tourist video for Switzerland. Every view is very beautiful. The scenic drive, as well as where they place the marker and when the team's grabbing from the lake, the front of the lake, it looks very beautiful. I hope Vancouver actually have those locations, which we do, but it is hard because it's so far apart. Sometimes it is hard for us doing a race in Vancouver to basically be able to travel to all these locations in a such short amount of time. But it definitely looks beautiful for me who never traveled to Switzerland and ever, right? So
100%.
yeah.
And I thought the bungee jump task was just great. I loved watching some of the teams just be like, "Oh yeah, we're doing this," and some of the other teams like Sherry, like
Mhm.
I love that. Like they're really putting Sherry through the ringer because like her
Yeah.
Akbar couldn't do it. Like he just
Yes. Yeah, I understand that, and because of the weight restriction, right? What do you think about that particular clue? Basically, like it's just saying that for Akbar because they didn't say why, it's just for safety reason. But of course, we all know that for weight issue, right?
they
So
did say weight issue. They did
yeah.
mention that, and I think this is a thing that's happened on the race in the sense that like this is a thing that obviously not everyone can do every single task. So
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure that this has happened where like in the clue it will say you have to do this one specifically. But it's never shown to the viewer like
Mm-hmm.
this. I'm
Mm-hmm.
sure in the past you have to be there's like someone will have to do it, but they just keep it hidden and act like they just chose to do it when someone specifically had to do it. I'm sure that's had to have happened. But this is the first time to the viewer that it's
Mm-hmm.
shown that oh yeah, Sherry has to do this one. And I think it's ultimately shown to kind of show Sherry's arc. It's all about Sherry's story arc, if you think about it.
So
Having to do
you
the
feel
first
like Akbar is being ignored at this point.
it's all about, I mean, Akbar and Sherry might as well be the Sherry show. And I'm okay with it because it's all about Sherry's arc.
Yeah.
How, it's everything is about Sherry, how she was struggling in the first leg and
Mm-hmm.
how, she's facing her fears. Like Akbar
Mm-hmm.
and Sherry, the whole like storyline of them is about Sherry and about her journey. And I think that's incredible. And
Mm-hmm.
Akbar, don't get me wrong, he has his moments too.
Mm-hmm.
He's there too, but I think all of this was designed and shown to the viewer to show
Mm-hmm.
Sherry's arc.
It's okay. The Amazing Race editor will contact you very soon. Say you just spoil our entire storyline for that team. But
And
which is
hey, all I'm gonna say is, if I'm predicting the future here, Bill, and we
yeah,
see that the reason that Akbar and Sherry win the season is because of Sherry, and she
yeah.
performs the task and she wins it. That's
Mhm.
called arc, and I predicted it from this point on. So
Are they in one of your draft pick or I don't remember? It is
yeah,
right.
they were my first draft pick, and
Okay,
honestly, I'm okay with it.
okay,
So
got it. So of course, and then we see the teams finish the bungee jump at the roadblock, and we see another clip of Kim and Pan as direction again with the locals, which I think for them as very smart racers, they kind of try to do whatever they can and to get directions, right? However, in the episode four, leg four and leg five, they both were shown approaching local without wearing masks and approaching a local where local is not wearing mask either. So I will talk about that later. So, but then either way, they were heading towards the lake to grab a clue, which typically is a detour, which it is. They have to choose between bartender race or sausage in case. Once again, the smart way of the Amazing Race naming the task. So between these two, what's your thought of the task design?
um, I I'm kind of getting a little bit tired of the
Mm,
task where it's just okay, complete this thing. In the sense like the sausage one, right? Where it's just like
mm-hmm,
learn how to do this, do it, and then get your
mm-hmm,
clue. It's
mm-hmm,
there's no like I like a I would have loved it if they would have been like, okay, they did this. They did like if this want to be themed around sausage, which is fine. If you want to show the
Hmm.
sausage and theme it around sausage, that's fine. For the place you're
Hmm.
at, it makes sense to want to theme it has around sausage. Why not do a task what they did in season 20, where it's you have to like get like different kinds of sausage or meats and identify which one's what. Like why
Hmm.
do like we already had the task, the roadblock with the bagpipe.
Hmm.
We already got the task with the belts and the little emblems, and now we're getting a task with the sausage. These all seem like the same thing. It's just doing something. And I wish we got more like quizzy things,
Hmm.
more like skill based things instead of it's just learn how to do this and get your clue. Those I'm really getting. It's too repetitive for me, Bill. I'm getting too much of those right now, and I want something a little
Well,
bit different.
as the viewers probably realize right now, if they haven't realized because they're just listening, our recap is actually kind of focused on the part of me complaining, which is rent, and which Connor is doing the recap basically. And then we heard that Connor's basically renting about task design. Well, I should basically amp up a little bit more later, but we are rent and recap, not just review and recap. We are going to rent a little bit more. So yes, like remember I actually mentioned in the beginning of the first few podcasts, we were actually just said, I think the detour task design this season, there's a theme about it, which is like I can do certain things or I cannot do certain things. So
Yeah.
in this case, in the bartender race, it's like I'm a stair master. So whoever can climb can do it. Whoever cannot climb, just do the other, whatever it is. So like you said, the sausage cases has nothing to it, right? It just basically if you don't want to do the stair, you just have to do something else. It's like I think I find the detour design this season is very much if you can't do this, you just have to do the other one
Mm-hmm.
kind of thing. So it's yes, it's getting repetitive since it's 5 episodes in. Every way of the logistic design of the detour is the same thing. And that's why you probably for you feel like it's the same thing over and over and over again. Then we go back to that a little bit about the thing where about also Sherry, which you have to do the roadblock. You have, I think, for one point of time, one point of it, which viewers have to think. Of course, they don't have to. I, as a producer, and to do with the logics side of it, uh, all this task and location work came up after they halt the production. So a lot of things they were like, well, if we go to Switzerland, we have limited amount of choices. We have no way to uh, kind of to design a task where only Sherry can do it, but Akbar cannot do it. I believe Akbar probably were told not to do the one that's actually have to go through the narrow mountain way to grab a clue because of his size. Unfortunately, I'm not shaming anybody here. Just for safety reason, he's probably the one that were also told not to do it because this for safety reason.
And keep in mind, he's also very tall. Like
Yes.
he's just tall dude. Like that has a lot to do with it as well. Like he was like they said they were Division 1 basketball players. Like they're tall people. So
Yes.
like it's not anything to do with like it's everything to do with just how like tall he is. Like that's a big part as well. There's no other team that has someone as tall as Akbar. I
Yeah.
mean maybe Penn. Maybe Penn is almost as
Yes.
tall as
But
Akbar.
then it's just the width of it, right? You have to understand those mountain paths are very narrow, and if for the
Mm.
bungee jump, there's weight restriction. So a lot of tasks were designed because of the limitation on it. So Akbar cannot do the two roadblock in a row. So I wonder, and then people probably they have to put that footage in and say that why is only Sherry has to do it for the safety reason. That people will start wondering why is Sherry always doing the one height related roadblock, right? So I think that's just basically kind of tell the viewers that well, it's really not her choice, but just for safety reason. And the same thing when we come back to detour, where we talk about the limitation on how they can design the task, where it's like, yeah, we have already have a good task about bringing people basically climbing the 400 staircase up to there to deliver wine and what's the bag of things? Oh God, I can't remember
They
it.
were chestnuts, wine and
Chestnuts,
chestnuts.
yes, yeah. So then the other side of it, just like, well, whatever, we can only put something that hasn't that we can come up with during the COVID restriction thing. So it's it's a bit subpar compared to the regular season, of course. But I think they're working around the limitation. Funny, I should be the one that's ranting, but I'm trying to explain the producers' logistics side of it. But I have more to rant later on.
And I
So,
will say, as much as I did not like the task about the sausage making,
yep.
I really did like the task with the
Mhm.
chestnuts, the wine, and the staircase.
Yeah, that if
Because,
there's always a good one, there's always a not so good one out there, right? So,
yeah, there was a sense of strategy to it. Like, what's
yes.
the strategy? How do we approach this?
Hmm.
And it wasn't just a physical brute force thing. It was a sense of like, you got to think about it as well. How do we do this? I like those kind of tasks.
But would you
That,
actually choose that versus if we know that the sausage basically just have to do that? Which one would you choose?
I mean, look at me, Bill.
Yes, I am looking at
I
you now.
am not the most athletically built specimen
Yeah,
on
but
this
I'm only
earth.
looking at your upper half, so I'm not sure if your lower half, just like like Dusty, have the strength of actually climbing 400 stairs really fast, right? So
Yeah,
yeah,
I'm 90% torso, Bill.
okay.
No, but, no, but like I am not the most physically built person in the world, so I
Mhm.
would do the sausage one, a
Me
hundred
too.
percent.
Yeah, I won't. Yeah, unless I feel like maybe I should go do some exercise today, then I'll choose the bartender race. But otherwise,
Yeah.
no, sausage case definitely is for me. So of course, after that, then I head to the pit stop, and it's at Parco Siani. And it's a very beautiful building, which once again they have to grab the clue from the travel law. Say no. Well, seriously, I was like, had no teams ever discovered a clue before the detour because they basically it's hidden right in the pouch, right? I'm just like they don't even actually try to have somebody give them the clues again. Oh, actually they did. Did it? Somebody did. Just say, oh, your next clue is in the pouch, or yeah.
Yeah. They were just kind of like, hey, it's in a pouch. Like they knew it was kind of in a pouch.
Okay, so it was told verbally. So then, of course, then the teams arrive one, two, three, four, five, and one team. Unfortunately, they had a very serious navigational issue. They were 2.5 hours late, and Phil was kind of not being that friendly and saying that, well, you guys are so late, the greeters were even left the place. I'm like, did Phil ever be that mean to the racers in the past? I can't recall. So
Hmm. To be fair, the greeter must have been some sort of diva. Like, they're not here on time. I have things to do, Phil. Forget this TV show. I got things to do, and just leaves. Like, how far
no,
behind were they? Come on, a couple hours. Come on, greeter.
no, I think the dog probably just need to do his business at that moment of time. Then it just had to leave right at that moment. Maybe it wasn't
Maybe,
in time for the. It just happened that the last team arrived when the dog has to basically take a walk.
maybe, maybe,
Maybe,
maybe,
but
maybe.
in order to actually make this TV more dramatic, of course, Phil have to say something like that.
Yeah.
But you know, so in the end of it, once again, like we said at the earlier of the podcast, where the teams would depart a 30-minute interval, which the three teams will depart first in the next leg of the race. Two teams will depart second, and the last team to arrive, which is a non-elimination leg, they will actually depart last. One thing I'm very surprised, which I'm not going to be like, is it going to be a trend in this season that Phil never mentioned anything about the speed bump?
Mm.
So, yeah, what do
I
you think?
wonder if we'll see their speed bump or not.
If it was cut out, it's not mentioned. Most likely, I would say probably Phil mentioned it, uh, or the speed bump is just not going to do much about the race itself.
Hmm.
So they're probably going to edit out the speed bump again for next episode. That's why you see that the Phil didn't mention anything about speed bump in this episode either, and that's the same thing in the episode 4, which no speed bump was mentioned when the teams were restarting at the Switzerland when they restart the race, but then the teams were actually doing speed bump
Hmm.
task. So I kind of predict that the next episode, the speed bump, either whether they have it or not, there will be no speed bump showing at all.
Yeah, I think you might have a point there.
Yeah, so we'll see if that's another trend which they don't like to mention in the entire season. So we'll see how that goes. So I'm actually prepared just to let everybody know. So I actually write a lot of stuff on the back of it. So yes. So talking about the way how the Wikipedia actually shows some locations, we kind of think that it will be very typical of which we see in leg four would be elimination. They eliminate Michael and Bull, and this in the current episode leg five, they do a non-elimination. So then next one they will do elimination. That's my prediction, and then non-elimination, then elimination, and then go to the states, which is of course the finish line. So that's
Hmm.
my prediction about it, and that actually works out to be three teams at the when they head towards finish line. So I will be surprised if they don't go that way, but based on how I see how the episode work out, that would be the thing. Yeah, I just spoiled the season for everybody right there.
Hey, so we're talking about spoilers here, but so you mentioned that you have a couple rants to talk about. We're rant and recap.
A
We got
lot
things
of
we can do.
things actually. So when season 33, like I said in a previous podcast, I said when a show, not including the Amazing Race, even Survivor, let's just put these two shows together. How CBS do things is that when they actively promote the show a lot, especially before the show started, you kind of can sense that the season itself is not that interesting. We have Jeff Probst constantly talking about season 41, how different it is. I bet a lot of viewers were not satisfied with how season 41 turned out. I wonder if you feel about that way when you watch the entire season for Survivor 41. Do you feel that way about it?
About how like it we didn't how it didn't turn out good.
Not good as in just like it's overly talked about and then it's kind of under delivered.
I didn't really get that sense. I mean, I think they hyped it up a lot because you have to have every season, whether it's Amazing Race, whether you have to hype up everything, and I didn't feel that way. No.
Mm. I think I kind of feel that way, not sure why. So when you see a lot of posts about or Jeff Probst stand out say it's going to be exciting season, then kind of know that yeah, the season probably going to be not that great. Because I've seen a lot of season where he doesn't have to say anything and it shows turns out to be wonderful.
Yeah.
And that's my gist on it. So we have a lot of pre-promotion in season 33, which season 32, sorry, season 32, and turns out to be a lion season, and season's very predictable. And so then season 33 again, where there's a lot of things where they talk about is there a pre-pandemic season, post-pandemic season, well, not really post, but during the pandemic season, and how teams are not able to come back, or how the race is having a difficulty to produce, all this kind of thing to create a buzz. And the true continuous season, we have exact same kind of deliver from Phil and as well as the creator Elisa Bertram. They were saying that they want to stick with the format itself. They don't want to change anything. No need for gimmicks. So then we have season 32. They were bring back yield, which a lot of viewers were complaining about. It's like it's such a failed concept because it doesn't really create drama, just have teams working there. And then personally, I feel the same way. And until the U-turn, especially double U-turn came out, it was actually such a dramatic twist and it created a lot of drama. And seriously, I sometimes I would say that whoever come up with a uh, double U-turn idea should get a raise or should do more things about this. And then in this season, of course, they also said that they have a very creative way of actually handling non-elimination. And what Phil said in this episode, from this point on, the remainder season, teams will depart 15-minute interval. I'm like, is that their really creative way of doing things? I kind of feel like the Amazing Race itself, especially since season 31, it become a low rent version of itself.
Hmm.
I know Connor is like, am I being too harsh there?
No, no, no. You're good. You're good. It's opinions. It's opinions.
Yeah, it seems like I'm not saying low rent version of other things, but just low rent version of itself. I'm not sure why. And then if they consider this as creative, really, I'm like I said, I'd say I'm a producer of the local Vancouver show of The Amazing Hunt, which is modeled after Amazing Race. I mean, I admire Amazing Race so much. I'm a super fan of it. I'm always going back to their early season to look for ideas about it and to see how exciting it is and how much twists they can come up with. I think The Amazing Race is a symbol of a show that it constantly challenges itself to bring the impossible into possible. And that's why I like The Amazing Race so much. But I think since season 31, a lot of things become so predictable, it lost its edge, right? I'm not sure if it has anything to do with the fact that the budget reason, or it have anything to do with the fact that, or the pandemic reason, which I don't think is actually a real reason because we see everybody's out there, we see everybody's not wearing masks. And when Phil said that we are following all safe protocols, I'm like, not really, not really, not really, right? So it just kind of like it doesn't really set well with me with how the race itself handle with the recent season. And of course, not just me saying that, but the viewers are saying that too. Oh, I just see there's a comment on it. Oh, actually, don't worry about it. The comment just said that. But for our information, that whatever we said earlier, but it's already done about that, so that's fine. So for me, I'm actually going to show something which I can say this idea. We like once again, I'm the producer for local race, which is modeled Amazing Race itself, and I'm going to show something that the race that we recently just aired, our 36th race and episode one. Let's see if the Amazing Race will be able to do this in the future. But I'm going to show that to everybody right now.
Number one, go up, stretch to the top. Got this. Breathe. Okay. Woo! Torture time. Get that. What here? 27. 25. 25, right? Yeah. Okay, let's go.
Okay, go to perfect time. We're taking a frickin' pause. Departure time 1:29.
25.
Is that the? Yeah. Departure 1:25. Departure time 1:25.
129. What was the other one? We can't grab it.
So that's basically how we handle the non-elimination leg. So having the teams uphold the departure time, which is stable for earlier season like season 4, 5, and possibly 6, right? So then you have the first team arrive there, pick the earliest time. The second team arrive, pick the middle time, and the third team actually whatever it is, they pick up the last time, right? And then you have the fourth, fifth team pick up the earliest time again, 16 pick up the last time, and the 17 who arrive last end up picking the middle time. So this is how I try to work the psychological way of working into the race where like because there was in a hurry to go to that location, there must be adrenaline rush there. They don't think straight. A lot of earlier seasons of the Amazing Race actually use that psychological aspect to create drama, which in the recent season that you see right now, there's no psychological things anymore. Everything is just predictable. And the only reason why one team becomes so late, 2.5 hours late, is because of navigational skill. But for people who live in, for example, who live in the States or live in Europe, you know if you drive one wrong turn, you're going to be on a highway at least for half an hour, right? So do you ever? Oh yeah, because I forgot you don't drive.
Nah.
But
I ride now.
Yeah.
When mama drives, I pay attention. So
then if say for example if your mom actually take a wrong turn, would that actually basically just waste another 15 to 30 minutes?
I mean, one wrong turn, no.
No, but if you're a highway, like what one team did, it basically just like one wrong direction. Because that's the same thing happened in Amazing Race Canada season 7, where one team basically was headed a completely different direction, then end up being eliminated just because they were like taking the wrong turn for the entire 1.5 hours. And it's hard to turn back sometimes. And it's hard to turn back time too. So Anywho, back to this thing where like this is ideas directly from the main race earlier season. I am just very shocked to see that they are actually not being creative at all. So when they were so hyped up about they're going to be creative at the preseason, saying that they have a very small way of handling it, all viewers got is like this 15-minute integral is their idea. I kind of feel very disappointed about it.
I mean, yeah, I guess. I mean, I feel like it's one of those things where like it's tough, right? It's tough because I feel like we're very hypercritical of these things, right? Because I think it
Me,
all comes,
I am, yeah.
yeah, and I think it all comes back to we want the race to be like it was when it was at its prime, right? That's the whole idea. When it was at its prime, it was doing things like this, having the teams think and causing them to make mistakes, and a team that's earlier pick a later time because they didn't think things through. I think it all stems around wanting the race to be at its prime, but we also need to think about the fact that this is season 33. We're not at the prime.
Well, but then this is the thing. It's kind of like you basically label the show 9 as prime, which is like a death to a show, right? That's why I think Survivor, even though I get the fact that people don't like the twist how the producer side came up, at least they're trying,
Yep.
right? So they don't if they don't like it, they can shove it back to somewhere else. They don't do it again, or they came up with something better.
Yeah.
Right. And then, but then you kind of see that Amazing Race is going to stale, which I actually have a chance to watch back season 18, 20, and 21 recently. I actually binged season 21 in one day. And I feel like all the racers in that season were like Superman. They can do everything. They can set up skill by using woods and then ropes up, and then also they can do dancing. Just like there's all the things that it's like you have to be jack of all trades. Where, like you said earlier, in this season, where the detour is just like, well, they just have to do one thing, which is kind of it just do something. It doesn't really instill fear or scare the teams or actually require their actually technical skill to perform anything.
It's I don't know. I just it's one of those things where those kind of tasks bum me out.
Yeah.
It's one of those things.
So not only the race, and we were talking before this podcast. We mentioned earlier that you feel that this episode is a bit long, right?
Yes.
And it's kind of drag out a little bit. I think I kind of understand why, because if I look into it, usually per each episode, there's usually 7 locations, and they kind of eliminate one by giving the roadblock at the beginning of the leg, which usually they will have the teams basically go to one location, pick up a clue, and say go to the next location for the roadblock, and that's one short, like at least 10-minute segment of that is out. So they have to drag the remainder of it a little bit longer. So it makes a little bit like stale a little bit. And that's why I think it's all about editing, and it's all about how well they create the psychological drama into it. But it really it's very lacking since season 31. Hopefully it picks up later, but we'll see how the listener and the viewers agree with me or not. Feel free to comment on anything. Just like I mentioned earlier, Sumima-sen was talking about how I would like the 20-minute to be talking about that, which I know it's not going to be possible. But we always like to listen to your opinion about everything, and so is Connor as well. We work very hard, try to bring a different style of rant and recap to the show, especially from me. Try to do things that the Amazing Race used to do to implement to in our local race. We'd like to see more smart decisions from the production team and to basically trap the teams into making mistakes.
Yes. And I think it's good that we have our little moments to talk about things that we really are passionate about. So you got your rant in. Is it time for my rant?
Yes.
Okay.
Sure. Yeah.
So I have something to talk about as well, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think something Amazing Race is known for is foreshadowing.
Yeah.
I think the best foreshadowing, we can all agree, is foreshadowing that it's there, but you don't realize how much it means until after, and you think about it after, you're like, oh, that scene where they foreshadowed meant something.
Mm-hmm.
What I will say about this season is I feel like we're being hit in the head with the foreshadowing. It's so obviously foreshadowed. There's foreshadowing a lot of different things. I have 3 examples for you.
Mm-hmm.
Number 1, if we go back a couple legs, we talk about the team of the father-daughter
Mm-hmm.
of Arun and Natalia.
Mm-hmm.
Now, Natalia helps another team. Arun's like, we shouldn't be helping teams. And she's like, oh. And then they do the foreshadowing of, well, I hope me helping those teams is not going to cause us to come in last. That's some foreshadowing. And we knew as soon as it happened that, this is foreshadowing. And I knew as
Mm-hmm.
soon as I saw that scene that, Arun and Natalia might be in trouble. You know? And then we got foreshadowing last episode, the one before this, about the two eliminated teams already, Arun and Natalia, and Mike One Mo. And they basically said to the camera, we're not going to be eliminated first this time.
Mm-hmm.
What happens?
Mm-hmm.
Foreshadowing.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like the foreshadowing is getting to a point where it's so obvious.
Mm-hmm.
And I think another example of this episode is the two girls of Kayla and Raquel.
Mm-hmm.
They've mentioned that they're switching up their idea of like usually Raquel's the navigator, Kayla is the driver. Now they're
Mm-hmm.
switching it up. Raquel's the driver, Kayla is the navigator, and they're saying how like this is the perfect idea. This is gonna work perfectly. We got this under control. This is great. You know, she's the better navigator. This is gonna be perfect. And
Mm-hmm.
then they even say to the camera like, "Oh, we know exactly where we're going. We're not
Mm-hmm.
lost. There's no way we could be lost. There's no way we could be behind." And it's so obvious to the viewer where it's like you are like it's like, oh yeah, you're lost. Oh yeah, this is a bad idea. And I think foreshadowing is good, but
Mm-hmm.
it's starting to become a bit excessive and a bit
Yeah, yeah.
so obvious. Well, I don't want to watch an episode, get 5 minutes in, and see some foreshadowing and immediately think to myself, oh, this team's probably going to be in trouble tonight.
Mm-hmm.
I want there to be some suspense, and I think the best race is the one with suspense, and where it's like, what's going to happen? What's going to happen? And
Yeah.
with foreshadowing, it loses some suspense.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think about that?
Well, this is the thing. This is the thing how the racer was constructed too, right? I mean, editing aside, for me, unfortunately, I cannot do that because we don't really interview teams. We don't have the chance to have teams to talk about certain things. So we don't for the Amazing Hunt itself. We don't have the luxury to basically use the team's word into putting something, right? Well, I kind of did. If you watch our next episode for this race, that which are going to air this Saturday at 5 p.m. Pacific time, there's actually no, it's actually the future episode. Scrap that. Okay, so I try to work in as much as I can if I have it, right? So I think editors probably feel the same way that if they have that, they will try to work it in. But because there is not enough thing to work on, but like you said, it feels dragged out. They have to take whatever they can to put it in, and that's why it becomes just hit you with the head with all the information that they can put it in, and then it's like they don't. I don't think there's much they can put in anymore. Even you see the bartender race is it's not like they designed the task to be like teams, if they don't pay attention to details, they will make a mistake on. A lot of tasks become very straightforward, and it's not. I wouldn't say really compared to previous season, like I just mentioned, 18, 20, and 21. If people have a chance to look back into the challenge and in those seasons, they are super difficult. I really don't know how the teams were able to do it. And then compared to the recent season, it just seems it's brutal force or it just feed to you, like feed the information or feed the task to you. You don't have to do anything extra. You just have to follow through the instruction. It becomes very boring. There's no unpredictability there. So yes, it's predictable for me to not be able to pronounce words, but that's fine. So then in the end, that's how you feel. Basically, everything is hit with your head, and that's how it is. I think it might also have something to do with it's the thing. I hate to say this now. I'm not sure if it's okay, but it's a generation thing. You have to understand. Same thing with Survivor. Any show that's been there a long time, it's 20 years in. You cannot have the same cameraman working for the same show 20 years. I believe they do. There's still people probably working from first season till now, and probably some editors probably do now. You will see how people try to deliver the things, how the editor do things, probably differently through different generation. Now it's more like let's just give you the information. It's easier to receive it that way, and same, yeah, same thing. That's how I feel. That's me. I've been doing race for this long. I kind of feel like you cannot you deliver this information to the teams, you have to be very, very detail oriented. Unlike before, where like they have to figure out more. Now you just be like you have to give more information to do this, and then I think the timing is different. I'm not sure if I actually answered your question or not, but
No,
yeah.
no, you did. I just wanted your opinion on it because, like, I want to know if I was the only one that felt that way or if you kind of felt that way too. And I think you gave a really good perspective. So thank you.
No worries. And in the end of it, I think we will see. I think it just comes down to the point. Not too sure if whoever is actually designed these challenges that they are going for a more straightforward route. They don't go into a way set up as something for teams to fail, which you like in the past season, or even if you see even recently in season 32, you'll be like when they put things together in a, I think it's episode 2 in Vietnam, or when they need to put something onto the car, they have to screw this, screw that. You see teams forget about this and that, and that's sort of kind of a psychological trap for teams to do. And a team, you can keep going back towards that footage over and over, and that's where the unpredictability shows. And now same thing with our race, season 36, our 36 race. There's a lot of unpredictable, just going to ignore that word now. A lot of things where there you will see a lot of changes. And personally, as a producer, I would like to see the ranking going up and down, up and down,
Yeah.
up and down, right? And that's going to make shows fun. But if you see the teams keep going first all the time, second all the time, but of course that's something out of the production team control. But setting up challenges where you will see teams to be possible to fail, or you set up a trap for teams to actually to make a mistake. That's the smart way of designing a task, which I do see some. I think Survivor tried to do that. I'm not sure if the Amazing Race is trying to avoid that right now. No idea. But hopefully in the future episode we'll see more smart challenges, or we'll also like to see the teams making more mistakes. Either one way or the other. It doesn't matter. Yeah.
Yeah. I agree.
Well, okay. So hopefully we're not too confusing the viewers or the listeners out there, but I think it's pretty late for both of us, so we like to end this podcast right soon. So thank you again, once again, to listen to our podcast and from Live Reality Games community. And we'll see you again next week. Don't forget to follow, subscribe, and like our Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter. So we'll rant more, we'll recap more, and if you have any comments, like the TR historian or anybody like to way to deduct my points, or to add more points for Connor's stylish wear, feel free. We'd like you to share your opinion with us. Thank you so much. We'll see you next time. Bye.
Bye.